So I think we're just gonna jump in since we're about 5 minutes in. As always, kind of pretty open forum. I got some ideas. We're gonna look into seller prospecting. Little background, that's how I started my career, really, was open houses and seller prospecting. This was before Zillow leads and Realtor.com and all these leads that were around. So when I jumped into real estate in 08, I mean, I think Zillow was kind of starting to come around with the internet leads, but we were like within about that year, one of the first teams, at least in our office, to jump on it. But before then, yeah, we were just, okay, what are we going to do for business? Open houses, did a lot of like random little stuff, like even passing out my card at the mall and stuff I don't ever desire to do again. But what I really fell into was cold calling. I was cold calling machine for like my first year, probably 2+ years. And then I would train people to cold call on our team. Then it was a bit easier. This was in Austin, Texas, where like when a property would expire, withdraw, you could just go on the MLS and grab their data. You can get like their phone number still and call them. And then it got a little trickier. I started like saving listings, thinking they were going to expire. So I'd have their data. And then when it expired, I would know I could pull it up on a PDF before it was like I had it before they had removed it. But there's several resources to get this data. It's not always perfect or accurate, but in my experience, it's definitely good enough to approach. Has anybody done any heavy seller prospecting, whether it be approaching or pursuing FSBOs, expireds, withdrawns, any other resources at all in the past?
No, I haven't.
Okay, cool. Does anybody have, like, do you have desire? Do you have any, or I'm guessing you have desire if you're here. Do you have any hurdles or any thoughts on, like, I guess any maybe hesitation or fear towards it? I hate to use that word, but what are your thoughts on seller prospecting? What are the hurdles you think you might have, and or hesitations you might have towards it?
I just want to make sure I'm like using my time efficiently, like, because I'm not afraid to cold call. What I was focusing on the foreclosures and the short sales, and I still am. I just got super busy with Zillow, but just making sure, like, I know, like, it's a numbers game, right? The more numbers you put in, the more numbers you get out, but just something I can put in place and just feel like, okay, just doing it, eventually I'm going to see it, because right now is a great time to have listings, right? I feel like this is the prime time to have listings right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, honestly, I think it's always a good time to have listings. Not always the best time to sell them, but you can get a lot of leads off it. I think the game has changed a bit since I was in real estate, but like we would get tons of buyers off of our listings. So we would really maximize it out. We had text signs. So every listing we had obviously had our phone number or Google number, but a little sign next to it. Like, we'd kind of play with it, be like text pickle to 88,000, and you get whatever, a little link with the video, but then we get your contact. We call you we call the lead with the buyer, the sales information. We wouldn't put the sale price on there. We'd kind of withhold some information, so we had reason to reach out. But anyways, that's kind of another caveat, but that's more like kind of maximizing your listings class or coaching. But we did, we would get a lot of, that's why even though maybe listings didn't always sell, we would almost always get at least one buyer off of them and several leads. And then obviously you have your open houses you can do with them. You have just the neighborhood presence in general, having your sign and your branding out there. All those are benefits, having listings that, even if they don't sell. But ideally, obviously, maximizing your time, you want to sell them. So yeah, maximize your time. Great. It's kind of tough. I mean, it is a numbers game. As you get going with cold calling and seller prospecting, it might be hard to gauge, your exact return. Like, so many hours and so many calls gets me this many listing appointments. This many listing appointments gets me this many listings, etc. But as you go forward and get more comfortable and with, leveling up your scripts, your objection handling, your listing presentations, your conversion, then I think you can get more kind of look at the analytics and get more driven, like number based on it, as far as what you need to do to achieve what you want. But I will say in the beginning, it probably for most will be a little kind of hit and miss until you get more comfortable and get a system. Has anybody done any cold calling at all for listings at all at any point? Nope. Okay. And then, so Missy, you had mentioned foreclosures and short sales. How are you like getting those contacts or receiving those? Or
So I purchased them from the title company, you know, where they give
Okay.
you emails and addresses. And so notice of default. So in February, there was a total of 39 notice of defaults. I only picked like right surrounding cities around Brentwood, and there was 39 with emails and addresses. And then I did divorces in the same cities, and that ended up being about 19. So I wanted to touch them at, you know, 3 to 5 times. And out of that total, I did get one response, but he had already refinanced to buy his wife out.
Gotcha.
So I did
Okay.
get one response. Other than that, I hadn't got any more. I got one lady on the phone, and she's like, please don't call me any. I'm getting so many calls. And then I explained to her, I was like, well, you're getting, you know, these calls because you've been issued a notice of default. And then I went right into that there's a shortage of homes on the market. This would be a great time to sell. And then I practiced my script, but she was like, no, please just take me off the list. but it is like, there's no reason. I showed 2 short sales last week and a foreclosure. There's no reason to foreclose in this market. Like, just freaking sell it. Somebody will buy it. You may even walk away with some freaking money. But that's the message that I was trying to get across to my few little leads that I bought.
So that was like 50-ish leads, and you reached out to them each 5 times, is that what you said? Or that was the idea?
Probably even more than 5. Because my first touch was HomeBot, because I have HomeBot. So I loaded them into my HomeBot. Second touch was a text, then a call. I didn't do any physical mailing, just because not a lot of people open up mail anymore. And then there's another cost tied to it when you can easily text and email somebody. And then there was an email, and then I'm due for another call, actually. Got you.
Yeah, mailing's tough. I mean, farming's one thing, a whole nother deal. I wasn't big in farming, but it does work. It's just a real long game, and I wasn't that into it, and I wasn't as focused. Like towards the end of my career, before I knew I was like leaving the country and my career on the ground as a realtor, I like kind of identified a couple neighborhoods that I was working in a lot and thought about farming, but it was never anything I did. Just more of a long game, and I liked approaching I like the cold calls. I could get a lot of listings out of cold calls. But right now, I mean, it's obviously not a super down market, so you don't have a ton of expireds and withdrawns, but you probably still have quite a bit from last year of people that didn't sell, that either went off the market because interest rates started going up and less buyers, and they wanted a higher price, and prices started kind of going down or not rising the way they had at the same rate they had been. So it might still be, I would think this would be a good opportunity to reach out to those type of leads, expireds and withdrawns. There's a few resources that I've used in the past, and I'll share this in the description of the video on YouTube. But essentially, there's a couple resources, and there's probably several others that I don't even know about. There's constantly new ones, but a couple you may have heard of some of these, called Vulcan 7. Red X is one, the last one I used. I used Red X, and essentially I bought expireds and withdrawns and FSBOs monthly, and I actually had it set up where daily they would email me a list of the new ones, and they would also import right into my Chime. And I had like a little kind of seller smart plan set up, kind of send them an email or text. I forget exactly how I had it set up, but similar to what you had, like a 5-touch plan. But then I also had a lot of content. So that's one thing I want to preface this all with. Like, I did really, really well with cold calling. Like, probably got in some year, my second year of doing it, probably had like over 40 listings I got out of it but I was
Oh my
working
God.
as a team. I was working as a team. I would cold call. I was really good at getting appointments or kind of getting in the door. And then my sister was just a killer on listing appointments. She just crushed them, like hardly ever didn't get one. And we also had content. So we did some pretty cool things for sellers in a down market. In 08 and 09, when we started, we started staging all of our listings, like all of them. So we'd go into a property and we just look for ways to present it better. And like Keller Williams would always tell us in the beginning, well, we'd be like, well, this property wouldn't sell, and their response was always, well, would you buy it for $1? We're like, well, yeah, of course. And they're okay, so it's the price. You need to lower the price, lower the price, lower the price. And we kind of like to think in our own outside the box, and weren't really all about all the traditional stuff that was recommended to us. So we looked at ways that we could just improve the property. It started with just professional photography, always. I still cannot believe anyone who lists a property without professional photography, unless it's like a little piece of land and a tear down home. Like if it's that to me is one of my biggest pet peeves, because it's doing a disservice. Like nobody, I don't know, if you would sell your own house, why would you? It's the first thing everybody sees online, but a ton of realtors still do it. Little shitty iPhone photos and crappy photos. That's immediate in, but looking for holes and ways you can improve it. And then we started staging. We hired some stagers at first, and then we literally started buying our own furniture. It turned into a huge staging company. But we started not only did we do that though, that's one thing to do that and tell people you do it, but we showed proof. We took photos before, or really what we did was we just used the old photos off the MLS and then stage it and had our professional photos and created little Animoto videos, super easy, before and afters. And it also showed what happened, like house listed for 415, 187 days with Coldwell Banker. We relisted it for 430, multiple offers in 3 days, sold above list price. Though we had quite a few of those, so we were able to show those and get right in the door. Like anybody saw that, it was proof of concept. That's a little harder to do. Obviously, you have to sell some properties and do some unique things and put in some effort to make that happen. But we also got a lot of listings without having to do that. We got lists. I had one cold call that I thought was for one little condo, $170,000 condo. And on the way to the appointment, my sister was preparing for it last second, because we were just super busy, always doing things on the fly. And she realized it was a whole condo community. And we showed up a bit unprepared for that, but still got it. And ended up selling like 30 units out of this condo community out of one cold call. Now, it was a repeated cold call. I cold called, tried an appointment. They flaked, cold call. I mean, it was like a month of back and forth trying to get this appointment. Finally got in. Ended up being a whole entire condo community, which was obviously awesome. But you just never know with cold calls. You really never know. What are types of leads you would think would be? So we talked about expired withdrawns. What other types of leads?
Right. I have a quick question for you, Patrick. All right. So you say you purchased those leads from Red X and Vulcan 7, and they just went right into your Chime?
Well, I mean, I had to do some setting up. Like there was a couple little back end things, but it was very easy because Red X is integrated with Chime. I didn't purchase with Vulcan 7. I looked into them at the same time as Red X. And I think another one was Cole, C-O-L-E. And I ended up going with Red X. Just they seemed like, this was 2 years ago. I can't remember exactly why, but for some reason they seemed better. Pricing, better quality of leads. Maybe it was because they integrated with Chime and the other ones didn't, but this was again 2 years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if the other ones did at this point. But yeah, it just floated right into my Chime. I created a little group for them. They always ended up there. It also emailed me daily, like a list of the new leads that were the new expireds, withdrawns, and FSBOs, and then the data attached to them. All those sites, none of them are perfect. You're going to get some phone numbers that are the past seller or the past owner. You're going to get some phone numbers that are the previous phone number of the actual seller or the owner. So, I mean, none of them are perfect, but they're pretty darn good. Like they weren't a waste of my time at all. I would say at least when I was using about 70 to 80% accuracy as far as the data you get for the leads. Gina Marie, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had a question. When you were talking about how you were doing some marketing with past listings and things like that, can't our agents use other houses from our brokerage? What is the perimeters around that?
It's a good question. I think I don't see any reason why you couldn't, but I would ask Monica that, because I'm definitely not the legal expert, but I think you could. I mean, it's your brokerage as long as you present it as, and it's very just WR properties, you know, sold by WR properties, not sold by.
Yeah, so I can help you with that question. So, because Jeff had told me about that, and even had told Lisa recently, and Christina, I think he was training them. But it's like, as long as you ask permission from the agent and just say, hey, I'm creating like a flyer showing like recently sold properties or recently listed, or maybe it's just a mixture of all of the above. And, you know, do you mind if I put it on my postcard that I'm going to mail out? As long as you get their permission, because it's their photos, right? Typically that they paid for and stuff like that. So as long as you do that, then you're good to go, according to Jeff.
Nice. No, that makes sense. I think most of that stuff, like even if you take a listing over that was expired or withdrawn, you technically could call the other agent and ask if you can use their photos. They'll probably want to charge you or tell you to, you know, blow off, but it is, yeah, that makes sense. That falls in line, that aligns with that. Anybody have any other questions or comments at the moment?
I have one question about if you know the stats on that, like when you were doing your cold calling, you know, like I know with Zillow, they say it's like typically 1 in 10 or 1 in 12 that you might get into contract. Do you have any stats on that cold calling? I know you said you were really good at it, but I was just curious, like how many calls do you make? Is it like 1 in 100?
Yeah, good question. I was really not at all numbers system oriented at that time. I was quite the opposite as I am now. I kind of like, now I do all the shit I hated to do when I was a realtor, which I like to do now because of time and I'm on the back end and now I get it. But yeah, I was a run and gun realtor for like, when we started with me, my sister and my mom, and we were all pretty new and we just kind of picked our own little lanes and went with it and didn't really have a ton of structure. And then we just blew up. And then we were kind of just like building this team and catching up and everything was just kind of like flying by the seat of our pants. But we were working like insane hours. I was literally working all day, every day, all the time for like over 2 years. Like I didn't even take a vacation for 2 years. So I'm catching up now. But I would work all the time. Even I would go out, I'd be on my phone emailing leads, clients. I was like addicted to it too much. And I got like burnt out on it really. But I was cold calling at least 2 hours a day. Wow. I didn't have a CRM I was working with. I mean, this was all like kind of old school. I had a bunch of notes and stuff. I was working like Wes does. I had like a yellow pad and writing all these notes and kind of trying to keep track of all this stuff. But yeah, at first I was terrible, obviously. Like I would call and people would ask me some ridiculous questions. I wouldn't even like, I remember so many times I'd get questions. I just like, once in a while, I'd even just hang up like, can't hear you and just hang up. They just like catch me totally off guard, but it was brand new. But yeah, so that's but Gina Marie, great point. Like we can create content out of what's already, you know, what's available. You don't have to have the greatest little before and after video like we had. We didn't have that in the beginning either because we hadn't done it. So in the beginning, it was just kind of looking at ways to solve the problems the seller has, just like we're always trying to look for ways to solve problems any buyer has or fill gaps. But looking for ways to pick apart their listing. Well, first, sorry, that's your second or third step. The first step, obviously finding out where you want to get these leads. So like I said, I'll put that in the description of this video on YouTube. Some resources I'm familiar with. There's also some like really easy resources for sale by owners. There's FSBO.com where you can literally get their phone number right off the listing and call them. And there's FSBOs on Zillow. FSBOs are tough. I've gotten quite a few. We've sold quite a few. We've also I also got quite a few that never sold because FSBOs can be a bit unrealistic and a little harder to bring to earth. They typically have a little less urgency. They're just kind of willing to see what happens. And yeah, they could just be a little tougher because they're not generally as motivated, but oftentimes when they switch from FSBO to listing with an agent, the urgency has increased or they're more motivated. So just like every lead we get in Zillow, every seller lead, any FSBO expire, which you never know until you know. But FSBOs are listed on Zillow, probably on Realtor.com. I know they're on FSBO.com. So those are easy ones you can just attack. We just interviewed an agent yesterday who's joining the team, and she's one-ish year into the business, and she had sold like 9 or 10, I think 9 transactions her first year while going to law school. Girl's really impressive, but a lot of them were off open houses. But she also had a FSBO listing. She didn't sell it because they weren't motivated enough to reduce their price, and she had to let them go. She learned that early, but she essentially was working with buyers in the neighborhood. They saw FSBO. She called them to show the FSBO to her buyers. Didn't work out for her buyers, but she maintained contact with the sellers and let them know, hey, if you're interested in listing, I'd love to meet with you, blah, blah, blah. They reached out. She ended up getting listing presentation, a listing. Again, didn't sell it, but that's not the moral of the story. She got a listing. And more often than not, at least half of those FSBOs you should be able to sell if you're choosing them correctly as well. Not stretching yourself or taking something that's, double the price that it should be. But still, and no matter what, especially in the beginning, it's all about just getting comfortable with making these calls, going on these listing appointments, getting these listings. So I wouldn't personally recommend against taking a, overpriced listing just to get your feet wet and get going in it and potentially get a buyer off of it, and hopefully learn even through that, the opportunity to learn how to have price reduction conversations with them and so forth might be, of good value. But and then the calls. So you have your resources. There's several out there. Like I said, I'll be sharing them with the video. RedX, VulcanX, Cole, Lion Desk is another one. There's a few others like Boomtown and Bold Leads. So there's quite a few out there. And then different pricing, different kind of platforms and what they do and don't provide. And then like we had discussed with FSBOs, the two I'm most familiar with are Zillow and FSBO.com, which you can get those for free. You can just grab numbers and often start calling them. And then as far as like what to do once you have those numbers, it's up to you. And this is where it kind of changes that question you had, Misty, about like the return on the calls. Depends how much research you're doing, how much effort you're putting into it, or if you're just like putting them on a dialer and dialing away. I wasn't that type of a cold caller. I wasn't just someone to throw on a dialer. Maybe I should have been. Maybe I was overthinking it. I wanted to be a bit prepared when I called. So especially if it was a listing that I really wanted to go after in the neighborhood I wanted to kind of have some market stats ready for them. So ideally, if you're trying to do it super efficiently, which I wasn't always doing, you maybe do it by area. So you have some market stats for that area, and then you hit those cold calls in that area. So you don't have to kind of do it as you for each individual property you reach out to. But the actual initial call itself, I'm very much a fan of like, I would always, so in cold call, now I have a different approach because I'm not necessarily cold calling. I'm calling a lot of times old leads in our system or leads that are working with other agents, but who I've had no contact with. So I have something to reference. Like my current calls would be like, hey, this is Patrick with WR Properties. You connected with our brokerage via Zillow last year. Does that ring a bell? I always ask them a question to kind of like, I never want to just steamroll. Hey, I was calling this, wanted to see if you have any questions about the market or if you like to see any property. It just like is overwhelming, in my experience, overwhelming to potential prospective clients. So I always ask them a question after my intro, and it's a light one. So Zillow leads, that would be it. Like, hey, you connected with Dawn via Zillow last year. Does that ring, or in October, does that, about some property in Pittsburgh? Does that ring a bell? gives them a second. Either way, it kind of like disarms them. For cold calls, my best question I'd come up with that worked pretty was just, hey, this is Patrick with WR Properties. Was calling about your property on 123 Main Street. Is right now an okay time for a call, or is it an okay time for a call? That's not even like proper correct English, but it works. They get it, and it disarms them. Is this an okay time for a call? Do you have a quick second for a call? Something real simple, because it gives them the opportunity to say yes and to like allow the call to happen, versus if you just talk, they're already like waiting to just hang up or kind of over, uncomfortable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything else they use to kind of disarm a call in that initial introduction?
No, I haven't made cold calls in years, except when I just called on those foreclosures just recently, and I was kind of laughing at myself. But for me, it's just, Wes said it. It's just a conversation. Some people are going to want to have it, and some people aren't. So even now, like with the Zillow calls, it's just a conversation.
Exactly.
Right? So with the same thing with the cold calls, the only thing, people are already on the edge with cold calls because they don't know you. And I think I already come across kind of salesy, because I used to call like moms on the basketball team, and they'd say, Misty, we always think you're about to sell us something. So I think I'm kind of salesy already. So I just try to make it, it's just a conversation, just a conversation. But no, I haven't cold called, like really like dialed like in a long time, but I'm kind of excited to see if I still got it.
Yeah, cool. I mean, you won't know till you know, and like don't over judge yourself too quick or anything. It just takes time. Again, like I did get a listing off my very first ever like cold call, but I was super lucky. I essentially was in a class, a bold class in Keller Williams, like a big old, like there was like 100 of us learning how to cold call. We all had the same list and the same script, and they wanted us to follow script, and I was not into that at all. I didn't see a reason to call everybody and say the same thing everybody else did. So I like went to the middle of the list, started there instead of the beginning or the back or whatever, called. But I was just, and that really set my tone for cold calling. I didn't use scripts anymore. It wasn't really salesy. I just had a conversation. I just called. I asked them, if they were interested. I was super nervous. It was like my first ever cold call. They were like they had already been called quite a few times, because this was our second day of calls. And I just let her know, hey, no worries. Totally understand. Appreciate you taking the call. We're here if anything changes. And this lady actually called back the next day. I think it was the next afternoon. She called back to schedule a listing appointment. And I was like, what the hell? I didn't even know what was going on, why she would call back and what to do with it. But like I had my sister, she had a little more experience, and went on the listing appointment. We got it. And my sister asked at the end, like, what made you said you got like over 100 calls from agents in the past few days. What made you call my brother back? And she said, your brother was the only one that sounded like a human, and everybody else seemed like a robot. They were just selling me, saying the same exact thing, So for me, that kind of like set my tone. I just started using that approach. Obviously, I use scripts as a base to try to to have a direction and a purpose and an intention in the call, but I don't ever really follow I mean, I have my own little scripts I've made, but I think scripts are really good when you begin to have a foundation and a direction. But then, the more socially comfortable you are, the more engaging you are, the more charismatic you are, like you can just tweak it, like make it your own. So, and it sounds comfortable and it sounds raw and authentic.
And you know what I think is a good time right now for this, because a lot of people don't cold call anymore. They've gotten away from it because everyone's so focused on texting and social media. And it's like, sometimes just get back to the basics, because I've been getting so many calls about my website and SEO, or what is it? SEO? Is that
SEO.
Right? I'm saying it right. Yeah. Oh my God. If I get one more freaking call, but I'm like, these people are calling, and it's not even that I'm not interested. I just don't have the time to chat with anybody, right? Like I just don't have the time. So, and also because of what just recently happened when interest rates went up, a lot of people took their homes off the market. So I think this is a good time to call on those expired withdrawns, because the market has changed, and a lot of people don't know that unless you're busy, right? You don't know what's going on.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And also like the seasonal, like people take their homes off the market for the holidays, and summer is usually just a more ideal time to move. School's out, whatever, it's easier weather-wise, easier for transitions. So yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a great time to call, especially, yeah, given the market changes and the trends we're starting to see. And I do agree, like, I don't know, because I haven't been doing it the last couple of years, but I know a couple of years ago when I was doing it in Austin again, I was actually surprised how little competition I had compared to 5 years prior when I was making calls. Like, I was making cold calls a few days late. I had a lot going on personally, and work was actually not the priority, but I was working as much as I could. And I'd call on listings thinking I might have already lost them and like get an appointment, and there'd be like nobody else. And I didn't understand why, because the number was right there. So yeah, I would think probably even more so in California. So yeah, I definitely think cold calling is a bit of a lost art, but it's still a lot of opportunity, still a ton of opportunity in it. And then, like you said, just having a conversation. And then a lot of these, so a couple of things I want to point out. You just said it, Misty. It's not that I'm not interested, I just don't have time. So a lot of that is with your buyers and seller leads in real estate. Your Zillow leads might hang up the phone real quick, or might not call you back, or might not reply. Could be because they already bought a house, or they're never going to buy one, or they don't like you. But it is probably more likely that they don't have time. It's not that they don't dislike it, they just don't have time. They don't have time to tell you they're not ready yet. They don't have time to tell you they haven't done the pre-approval yet. They don't have time to tell you they're still looking for they just don't have time or desire. But that's why continuing to reach out to catch them when they do have the right time is always a good idea. And then I often ask them, this is more of a buyer lead thing, like, hey, is my follow-up okay? Or hey, is it okay if I circle back in the next couple of weeks? Depending, if they're a year out, is it okay if I circle back and then, every few months to check in? You'd be surprised how many people say yes. Like, I thought that question would start getting a lot of no's, and maybe I'd have to stop asking it and just do the follow-up. But I'm amazed how many people actually say yes. Then I have something to refer back to. Hey, just referring back. We spoke in February. You asked if I could touch base in a couple of months. So here I am, more on the buyer side, but also on the seller. So if they're listing, if it's a listing lead and they're like, no, we're just really don't want anything to do with the market right now. Hey, totally understand. No worries. Would love to have the opportunity, if anything changes, to assist you. Is it okay if I just reach out every couple months to check in? Boom, that's it. Oftentimes too, and if you're getting a lot of no's, then maybe just stop asking that and just do it. Because also, oftentimes they're going to forget. If they're getting a ton of calls, it's going to be really hard for them to remember exactly who they talked to and what they told what. So if you call them back in 2 months after they said, please remove me off your list, this is up to you. I'd still probably call and then probably play dumb if they happen to call me out on it. But I mean, I've never had that really happen. Rarely are they going to be like, oh, we talked in like February and I told you not to call again, because they've talked to 50 other people. So they can't usually remember who's who and what's what. So I wouldn't hesitate to like reach back out. If they like really said, please do not ever call me again, then I'll probably text them in a couple months. Hey, just checking in. Because it's just a little conversation, and things change for people. So if they're getting blown up by 50 realtor calls today, in 2 months, things change in their life. Maybe their motivation to sell, they see properties in their neighborhood selling, interest rates going down, prices going up. They haven't talked to a realtor in a while. Maybe you call them then, and the timing is just perfect and you get them. So you really never know. But like you said, like Misty, as you mentioned, just having a conversation, getting that intro, finding an intro that works for you, where it's a real easy intro. You're not blasting them. Hey, this is Misty with W Properties. I saw your property expired. Was wondering if you were looking to sell anytime soon. I had some buyers there, blah, blah, blah. Like, it just is too much. So just giving them a moment to take a breath, and yourself, disarming them with a little question, and then getting into it. Just, hey, I see your property, for example, an expired withdrawn. I see that you were on the market for a while. Was just curious if you were considering relisting. Obviously, if you have a buyer in the neighborhood, even better. A lot of realtors lie about it. That's up to you. I didn't play that game too much, but if you have a buyer, a real buyer, badass. Like, then you're actually serving your buyer by potentially finding them a property that you don't have to compete with other buyers and get it off the market. Maybe not have to deal with another realtor too, but then you have a chance. That's how our newer agent Allie got her listing. She literally had a buyer that they couldn't find anything, found a FSBO that might work for them, showed it to them. I think I already said this. Yeah, showed it, got the contact, stayed in touch, got the listing. But you could also preview. You could be like, look, I don't honestly, and this might even work out well because a lot of the people that are calling will say, I have a buyer in your neighborhood, I want to preview it for him, blah, blah, blah. A lot of that's bullshit. But you could say, hey, honestly, I don't have a buyer in your neighborhood, or I would have already shown it when it was on the market, but I'd love to preview it because I work, I work in a pretty big office with 40 other agents. Would love to preview it and share it with our team in case anybody has one currently or going forward. You could even refer to Zillow Flex. Like we're partnered with Zillow, and we connect with over 200 buyers every month. Would love to have this to go to include in our off-market inventory. Those are a couple avenues to get in. Or hey, I'd just love to connect with you. Would love to come by and just preview the house, meet with you in case anything changes. At least you have an option in your pocket. Love to buy you a coffee, whatever it may be. Love to, if you're good at looking at whatever your niche is, if you're good at staging, like staging can be real simple, where it's just decluttering, putting nice little towels and some little trinkets in bathrooms and kitchens, making them look nice, and decluttering the house can be super simple as that, which can have a humongous effect. Again, if they didn't have professional photography before, if you can pick apart anything on their previous listing, if the description was terrible, if they listed it as, if they missed that there was a half bath, a lot of times realtors actually don't list a property correctly. They can even have the location can be off. They don't include what updates have been included, or like what do you call these, like garage apartments, stuff like that. Like anything you can find where the prior listing agent didn't do full service for them or didn't provide them as much exposure as they could. Those are ways that you can get in the door and poke holes in because their previous experience, you want to show them that was, I hate to say it, but like on the agent. So therefore, to kind of position you as someone that can help them. It's not their house. Maybe find ways that you can easily fix those, like the staging, decluttering, etc. Honestly, like next level is where we went, where you can find a lot of times it's like one little thing, like a red wall right when you walk in. And if you just paint that white, or like, I don't know about in California, but in Texas, a lot of homes have this wood paneling and it looks horrible and old. But if you paint that stuff white, it looks awesome. Super simple fix. You don't need to sheetrock everything or do anything crazy. It could be as simple as like a $30 to like $100 backsplash from Home Depot that makes the kitchen stand out. Little itty bitty things can go a long way. So finding ways that you can see where you can bring value as far as educating them and guiding them, obviously better presenting their property and marketing it better. Anything you can find a hole in that you might be able to fill is a great way to get in. Yeah, so that's more or less like what was our approach. I'm not the listing presentation guy because I didn't do it. So I kind of cover the before part. And then the follow-up, obviously. So when you do connect with them, just staying in touch and providing them value. I think Gina Marie brought up a good idea. I think maybe we need to come up with a little something for the team that everybody can just present, like WR Properties sold, and grab some like that sold well above list.
Ooh, that's actually a good idea. Maybe I could I don't know how I could manage this, but that would be really awesome for agents that want to give permission for other agents to be able to access their things and promote them. You see other agents at open houses, and it's not their open house, but people don't know that. And the agent listing it is happy because there's another agent in there helping them and promoting it. And then people could snag from that. We have to think about that, but it'd be cool to be able to have something for them.
Yeah, I think it's doable. I think you just
I was
find
gonna
out
say
like
an easy way you could do it, and I think it would be less work for you, Gina Marie, is especially because our office is full of rock stars, is just having a list of the addresses that have sold, like closed each month. And then if an agent really wants to utilize that, they can see who, they can look it up on MLS, they can pull the pictures, they can reach out to that agent within our office and they can ask them. And that way all you're providing are which ones have sold. It's option.
yeah, I mean, that'd be a great easy way to start it for sure. Good call, Melissa. Like a great,
There,
not overwhelming project where we can
we
just
already do
what?
that. Suzanne does that every month. I mean, that's how I figure out who's the top producer and converter and stuff. I'm just thinking, then you'd have to get a hold of them and find, when you guys use pictures from other agents, do you just grab them online or do you get them from them? When I've done print ads before, I usually ask the agent for the pictures that they want to post.
I totally just take them from
So
online.
yeah, I mean, you can get them off the MLS, right off the MLS, or Zillow or whatever. But no, I think the list Suzanne does great, but I don't think she shares it with the whole team. So we'd have to just create a way that was shareable, and then people could grab. And then maybe it's best. Maybe we just ask the whole team. I'd be surprised. I sure wouldn't care. Like if I already sold the listing and everybody wanted to use my pictures to try to help themselves, like great. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the angle where one of our agents would be worried about somebody on our team using it. I think we maybe just ask like office wide all at once if everybody's happy to.
That's a great idea. Maybe I can put it, in the all about me. Like you could put in there, have their permission to promote your properties or ask first or never, and then that way, if they ever found a listing, they could go on the about me, they could see what it said and just I'm just trying to think of something that'd be really simplified. It'd be a lot to update it constantly. It wouldn't be hard to just take a section of that list that Suzanne has, obviously not all of the everything else, it's all the other personal details on there, but just the address and the agent.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think maybe it's just something you could even do at like a team meeting, just ask it. And is everybody approved? And I don't know if something like, we'll talk to Monica. I just can't imagine it being a huge deal. Like somebody's going to sue you within the office for using some pictures of a listing they already sold to get more listings for the team. Yeah, I'd be surprised, but we'll ask Monica about that, come up with a way. And then maybe we can start with that little list where people can pull from, but then also create a quick little like Animoto video. I mean, this is something that could be done in like within a couple of hours. We could put our heads together and create this, just put their little video with, 5 to 10 properties that sold in the last 3 to 6 months with some cool stats, like ones that sold really quick, one that sold over list, ones that had really good photos. Ideally, if we found one that had been listed, or any that have been listed before, whether it doesn't even matter if they were listed last year or 5 years ago, we just put previously listed and not sold, blah, 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 and then relisted with us. You don't have to add all the details. And then, but as much as anything, showing how we present properties too, like the professional look, just going, full-blown professional, not just your average iPhone realtor, for starters. So I think that might be at least a little content you could show for proof of concept. Then it's just maybe even link into your, send them to our WR on Zillow and show that we have all these reviews and previous sold listings. I mean, you could show, yeah, you could even take little previews of like little snapshots of your stuff at open houses, doing open houses for other listings. Doesn't matter. It's just showing. People don't always know, like Misty's like, I look busy no matter what, or Mia said this too, like looking busy, like that's all that matters. They don't know if I'm showing my buyers or just previewing a house or whatever. It's just looking busy and coming up, putting up that, positioning yourself as a professional in the real estate industry and someone that can be of value to them. Anybody else have any other ideas or content stuff they think might, anything on this? Because I'm kind of done with my little spiel. Bless your hearts for listening to me so long. Does anybody have any stuff they want to add in or ideas
well,
they've had?
I-
Or
question. I think I know the answer to this, but I'd be curious to hear from the agents. I know that I hear a lot of feedback from other people about how great our agents are doing by, anytime I see something on social media, I don't get everybody's posts, and I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media, but when I do, if I see something, I'll repost it if it's shareable. Some people's posts are not shareable, so I can't do it. But I believe that all of that energy helps for each other. Do you guys get any feedback from other people in regards to other agents in the office? And has that helped you in any way?
What do you mean feedback,
Yeah,
Jeanna Marie?
what do you mean?
Like, do people say, wow, Misty, there's a lot going on in WR Properties, you guys are, doing really well. Do you feel like that's being recognized from other agents and that's spilling over onto you?
I do, because I do the whole little Misty show thing. And I do. People are like, "Oh my God, Misty, now you're in Martinez, and now you're here, and oh, your offer was won." And it's so yeah. I've been getting some feedback, but I do feel really busy too.
But I mean, like, are you reposting other agent stuff?
Oh no, I'm not. I can barely post my own. I'm not a social media person at all.
I would say that one thing I've noticed, Jeanna Marie, is because I'll share stuff from like lenders or different things, like videos that they've done, photos or videos. And if you go back and at least in your stories, if you go back and look at how many views you've had, the ones that have been shared, it'll all have like 80, 70, and then 10 if it was a shared one. And then all my personal content, though, they're all higher. And so I'm thinking it's kind of one of those algorithm things that they've changed to where people aren't seeing it as much, like it's not getting to their story. I don't know, because it will just be smacked in between some of my own personal content and it will be a really low number of views. So I think that's kind of interesting, but I'm sure it's an algorithm kind of component. But I don't really share a lot of what's happening on other people's posts unless it's like a silly thing.
Yeah, I don't share any. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I just don't know if my stuff's shareable either, so I just post it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't share anything for a couple reasons. Well, obviously, I'm not an actual realtor working, but I know I don't see that it gets a bunch of content. I think like maybe Jeanna Marie, because you're connected with a bunch of different realtors, lenders, more kind of on that side, but I'm not. And B, I'm scared it messes with my algorithm. I want my content to be seen, whatever I'm sharing. And if I'm sharing a bunch of stuff that my crowd's like, I don't use Facebook for that because I'm not an active realtor. So mine's more for travel, my friends, my family. If I start sharing real estate stuff, they don't care. Therefore, they're not going to watch it or see it as much. And then my exposure will drop. And then, yeah, I don't know enough, but I do think sharing a lot of content. So like in real estate, you want to not be only sharing real estate stuff. You want to keep it at least like 80-20, not even a little more with personal content. Because if you're just putting real estate, the algorithm will knock you down. And also your people in general. Like if I just see somebody sharing real estate stuff all the time, we're like, okay, unless I'm like all about buying a house or following their career, okay, I'm not like, it's not going to be super something I'm looking to see every day. So that's why the social media recommends you have a balance of at least 80-20. And I think it's really more like 50-50 now, where you want to, between like your personal, sorry, I don't even think 80-20 is at all correct. I think it was like 60-40 and now it's 50-50 between personal content and business content, promotional content, so forth. So that's where too, if you're trying to share your own stuff, like post your own stuff and then you're sharing other people's stuff, then you have a lot of personal, you have to almost put out more and more stuff to keep your balance. Because you're sharing other people's stuff on top of yours, and then you have to put more personal stuff to kind of keep that ratio, if that makes sense. Does that make sense at all to everybody? Yeah, cool.
It does.
Sweet. Gina Marie, did that kind of answer your question? I wasn't sure what you were asking at first, but I think that was it.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
It was funny because my uncle goes, I don't know how you guys have any time to sleep with all the stuff you guys got going on. Like, you know, he looks at it. I don't know how many people look and don't like it, but look and see it. And I kind of like, and I was just scrolling through as you were talking. You're right. Like I'll get like 500 views for something that I post organically. But things that I repost, not so much. They didn't seem to be getting a lot of traction.
Yeah, it's tough with these algorithms, but I think like, I mean, sharing something like cool photo from the WR500 or stuff like that would be more, definitely get more engagement than sharing somebody's just sold. Because it's team, it's got cool photos, it shows some emotion, it's something cool to look at. It's cool content. But if I was your friend and you shared somebody's just sold of somebody I don't have any idea of, unless I was really interested in your career path and, you know, WR as a whole, which I'm sure there are people, but I think maybe the majority might not, and or even before they have a chance to, Facebook might kind of just chop you down a bit, especially if that post didn't have a ton of engagement. So if you're sharing from a person who shares a ton of real estate content and doesn't get a lot of exposure because the algorithm kills them, and then you share it, I would imagine that would also hurt you. I don't know if anybody really knows the answer to that, but that's what I would imagine is going on. Are you trying to talk, Melissa? Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Well, sweet. Does anybody have any other question? I hope this was helpful. Hope you guys got something out of this. If you have any ideas always going forward, how to make these classes any better, or anything else we could do to make this particular class better, as we'll teach it again probably in about 3 months. But I will be uploading it to YouTube this week, like I said, including a list of those resources I mentioned. But does anybody want to add anything or have any questions before we sign off for today?
I have one question. I know you're going on vacation on Friday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we won't be having the
Open forum?
I had some chime questions for you.
Okay.
But how long are you gone? Just a week?
Yeah, I'm going a week.
A week.
I'll be
so
back
you know what? I'm gonna connect with you when you get back.
Okay, feel free to like email or call or text me too if it's something like that I can answer. If it's something we need to like Zoom about, we could possibly squeeze it in like Thursday.
No, I just want to. Yeah, no. This week is like super crazy for me. So I was thinking we'll just do it when you get back, because I just have a couple of questions and I just want to be in front of my computer. I want to there's just a couple of questions. It's not urgent. It's just now that I've been using it, I'm a little more advanced now. So I have just a few more questions.
All right, sweet. No, and I want to get some feedback from you. Awesome. And I'd love to get some chime feedback from you because I know you're really jumped in it. So I'd love to hear anyways. I'm looking for ways to improve that, make it easier always. So let's do a Zoom when I get back. I will do an open forum the Friday I get back. So not this Friday, but next Friday, I will do an open forum. And if we need to do something separate from that, if you're busy running Misty Matthews show all over the Bay, we could schedule something separate too. No worries.
Okay, perfect. The week when you get back, we'll get something on the schedule.
Okay, cool. If anything else urgent, feel free to message me though between now and Friday, and I'll do my best to reply.
Perfect.
Cool.
And I like this. I took some good pointers from it.
Okay, awesome. Good to hear. Glad to hear. Melissa, you all good? Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to add in?
Good.
All right, awesome. All right, well, you and Lisa, good luck out there in the weather. Misty, good luck out there getting to the office eventually.
It's still raining. I'm like, crap.
I'm at school pickup and it's insane because there's so many parents trying to pick up their wet sopping children.
Oh.
I'm like watching all these kids hopefully not getting hit by parents that are driving. I'm like,
Be safe
All
out
right.
there.
Yeah,
Alrighty,
y'all
guys.
be safe out there. Thanks for joining today. Have a great day. Thanks, y'all.
Goodbye.
Bye now.